So thank you, everybody, for making yourselves available and coming out this morning. I've called this news conference to talk some about shoplifting and give you an update on the new law that was recently passed by the legislature and our use of that law, as well as changes that are going to be made effective immediately in Bernalillo County when it comes to the prosecution of shoplifting. I want to say right off the bat, like everyone in this community, I am fed up. I am sick and tired of seeing shoplifters go into stores and brazenly take property out of those stores, and it's unacceptable at every single level. You can't watch TV or go on social media these days without seeing another video of shoplifting. And shoplifting scares people. It destroys business. And everywhere I go, as the DA in this county, I am asked about this specifically, shoplifting. What are we doing about shoplifting? So I'm here to tell you today we're going to be doing something about it. We already are. And so standing up here today with me are community leaders. We have Sheriff Allen from law enforcement and Chief Medina. We have legislators. We have Representative Marion Matthews, who has been instrumental in the lead on retail crime in this state. We have leaders from the business community. We have Rob Black with the New Mexico Chamber of Commerce. We have Terry Cole with the Albuquerque Chamber of Commerce. We have Trey Gilpin with Alto. We also have here today from the governor's office, Jeremy Romero, the public safety advisor to the governor. We have Steve Chavez here, who's head of the Governor's Business Alliance on Crime Reduction. We have Rob Hart, the director of the Governor's Organized Crime Commission. So the first thing I want to do is I want to give everybody a little bit of an update on the law that was passed last legislative session, House Bill 234, carried and spearheaded by Representative Matthews, and I'm very grateful for what she did. Because this bill has allowed us to aggregate misdemeanors, specifically combine misdemeanor cases and turn them into felonies, as they should be. And it also created the crime of organized retail crime. Various agencies, since the passage of that and since I've been the DA, have focused like a laser beam on the issue of shoplifting. And specifically the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office, the Albuquerque Police Department, the Governor's Organized Crime Commission, and of course the business community. And that's why I'm thrilled to have the business community here with us today, because it's an important aspect of a community-wide effort to tackle shoplifting. So to date, I wanted to let you all know that under the new law, which allows us to aggravate multiple misdemeanors into felonies, we, in the month of July, charged 12 cases. In the month of August, we charged 11 more cases, for a total of 23 cases just in Bernalillo County alone have been charged as felony shoplifting under this new legislation. And I want to say this new law is a great tool. It's a great tool, and we plan on continuing to actively and aggressively prosecute these cases. Appropriate. Thank you for that. In fact, of these cases, we filed 5 pretrial detention motions, and 4 of them were granted. We were successful on 4 of them, so those individuals will be remaining in custody until trial. This is an example. This new law is an example that if you give law enforcement the tools, we will do the job. However, the current way in which the justice system in Bernalillo County is handling shoplifting cases at the misdemeanor level is not working. It's not even close to working. So we are going to do something about it, but let me just give you some numbers so you can think about it. Last year in Metropolitan Court in Bernalillo County, there was 662 misdemeanor cases filed. All of these cases are known as what is officer prosecuted cases. In other words, officers would be saddled with the duty of trying to go in and prosecute these cases themselves. of we didn't have lawyers in Metro Court handling those cases. We didn't have prosecutors handling those cases. Well, that's changing because there's two major problems with the way it's been going. Number one, cops aren't prosecutors. They're expected under the old system now, effective today, the old system, they're expected to actually prosecute cases, lay the foundation for evidence, things like that. That's not their job. We want cops to be cops, and by making them be prosecutors, it takes the cops off the streets. They're required to spend time in the courthouse as a prosecutor to a case they didn't even witness, as opposed to being out on the streets doing what we're asking them to do. Let me be very clear, though. It is not police officers. It's not deputies. It's not officers' fault that there is an awful conviction rate. Last year in Metropolitan Court, for the 662 misdemeanor cases, there was a conviction rate of 15%. 15% is all that was convicted of misdemeanor Metro cases in Bernalillo County. That is unacceptable at every level. I am not placing blame on anyone, but enough is enough. So I'm changing that effective immediately. From this day forward, this office will be entering its appearance on every single misdemeanor in the county. In other words, there will be a prosecutor from this office handling every shoplifting case. Now, the immediate impact is we're going to put more cops back on the street by doing that. They're not going to be in the courtroom having to try and prosecute a case. They're going to be on the streets and hopefully less in the courtrooms. There'll be 14 prosecutors handling these misdemeanor shoplifting cases together with DWIs and domestic violence in Metropolitan Court. This office will hold people accountable. We will hold shoplifters accountable as well. And so let me also be clear. I understand a lot of what's driving shoplifting, unfortunately, in this community. Too oftentimes it is the result of an addiction that they can't get off of, if you will. This office will divert first-time offenders. We will offer opportunities for them to get treatment. We will absolutely give every single person an opportunity not to get further in the criminal justice system, but to get out of the criminal justice system. But at the same time, if you shoplift in Bernalillo County and continue to shoplift in Bernalillo County, if you are a repeat offender or if you are a frequent flyer, we not only will charge you with felonies if it meets the standard, but just repeat misdemeanor cases over a certain length of time, we will prosecute you and we will ask for jail time. We're going to give you an opportunity to better yourselves, but if you don't take advantage of that, there will be consequences. The days of shoplifting without consequences are over in Bernalillo County. So I do want to point out, and I do have, if there are questions later perhaps, Monica Cias, the Deputy District Attorney in charge of the Metro Division, Elizabeth Bates is the Supervising District Attorney, and all Metro attorneys, and most of them are in court today. I'm sure some of them prosecuting cases actually as we speak. But I want to thank all of them because that's going to be a major increase in the caseload. But I'm looking forward to making a difference when it comes to one of the most important issues there is when it comes to this community. So we are going to do this in this office, and we're going to tackle this issue as a community. I want to introduce a few of these people to come up and speak. By the way, before I introduce this next person, Sheriff Allen's coming up, and I know that some of you all have reported on the fact that he was, where is he? There he is. Recently, he took a hands-on approach to a shoplifter, and I'm grateful for the fact that we have sheriffs like him who are willing to stand up and do what's right at any given time. And that person was indicted, I just want to give you an update, was indicted on Thursday For shoplifting, $500 to $2,500. Conspiracy to shoplift, $500 to $2,500. And battery, misdemeanor battery. And I will be entering my appearance today in that case because if the sheriff is going to do that, and if he's going to be the witness, I'm going to be the prosecutor. So that will certainly be an interesting case to say it alone. So Sheriff Allen, why don't you come up and say a few words, please? Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. This is big news. We talked about how we're tired of it. We need to talk about the community's tired of it. We see things on the news. We see it on social media. We see it personally. It's time to stop talking about it. It's time to start, again, actionable items, things to act on. This is big for our office. This is big for law enforcement. No longer can we be short in the field while our deputies are out doing prosecution on shoplifting. They need to be out on the streets. This is also sending a message. We understand that there's people that are addicted, that have mental health issues. It's time to stop talking about that also. It's time for some tough love. And the tough love is if you're going to keep shoplifting, you continue to do it. You continue to smoke fentanyl. You continue to commit crime. You continue to make victims out of all of us as a community. Then other than diversion and being into the criminal justice system, we're going to deal with you. And that's the bottom line. Thank you to DA Bregman for actually stepping up to be the first district attorney that I can remember in my 27-year career on stepping up. Not only everyone's going to, and the pundits will talk about it's a misdemeanor. Well, we're starting to see what shoplifting is doing, not just in the community, but around the nation, and what it's going and how it's directly linked to fentanyl and how it's directly linked to so many other crimes. And then we talk about intervening. Well, this is one source of how we intervene. And if you continue to do crime in our community, specifically shoplifting, once again, we will deal with it and we will address it. Tough love. We can't treat anything with kid hands anymore. If they go to a judge, then they need to be held accountable. If they need to get off narcotics, then they need to be into some type of diversion to where they are productive into our community. So our law enforcement can be on the streets battling repeat violent offenders and the violent crime that we see going on in our city. Thank you for everybody that's standing up here for Representative Marion Matthews. The new law, the aggregate, is great for law enforcement as a tool. As long as we keep adding tools such as this and the press conference we're having today to deputies and officers and law enforcement around, just not Bernalillo County, but hopefully around the state, I believe that we will start sending a message and being able to see a dent in the crime of just not shoplifting, but you will see it as a snowball effect on violent crime and all the different crimes that we are seeing. So thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Chief, you want to say a few words?
Just want to thank everybody for being here today, and I want to thank the DA for taking this important step forward. You know, in 1995, I took my first shoplifting as a young officer working the Southeast Area Command, 301 San Mateo, I believe it was. And short time later, I showed up to court, and I realized that I had to prosecute the case. I had been on the job a whopping 9 months, probably 2 months on my own, and the rest of the time in the academy, and I had no clue what I was going to do. But I learned something. 90 days deferred. And every single officer in the Albuquerque Police Department, and probably the Sheriff's Department, will tell you we have utilized that. Because it is the easiest way that we understand to get through the case. And basically it's a deferral, and after 90 days that case is dismissed. And there's a variety of other issues that our officers see in trying to prosecute these cases. We have no means of contacting witnesses. Large portion of these cases are dismissed when witnesses, loss prevention officers, don't get proper notification or have not been interviewed prior to a court hearing, and the cases are dismissed. So this is a big step forward in getting the right resources and getting the right tools to help address the problem. Many times I'm asked, what is law enforcement doing to help with the shoplifting problem? You just heard the district attorney talk. 600 times last year, officers and deputies in this county took an individual and charged them for shoplifting. And a whole whopping 75 of those individuals were found guilty. It is not our officers' job to prosecute cases. They don't have the tools, and I thank the DA for taking this big step forward. We've many times said that it's the criminal justice system that needs a revamp, and it's the criminal justice system that needs to function at every single level. As we continue to move forward, it's steps like these that are going to help us succeed. I also urge the state legislature. It's easy for us to say individuals with mental health needs need mental health treatment. Individuals with substance abuse needs substance abuse. But we also need our state legislature to step up. And we've talked about this over the past 3 years with the Metro Crime Initiative, that we need the resources where to send these individuals. Because many times when you speak with some of our judges in the courts, it is where they're going to send this individual to that then becomes the next question, because there is not an open immediate bed for these individuals at some of the locations where they need to send these individuals. And those of us that deal with or live with individuals with substance abuse problems, and I do have those members in my own family, there's one thing I do know, is that there's a small window of time when they want to get services and they want to help themselves, and it's of the utmost importance that they want this. So we also have to make sure that the rest of the system has the resources to send these individuals to where they get the help that they're needed. So I know that there's a lot of extra money in Santa Fe this year, and I hope that all our legislators remember that, and they remember that the best thing you could do to help law enforcement is make sure that the mental health resources are there for individuals to get the help that they need, and make sure that the substance abuse resources are there so that our law enforcement officers don't have to continue to deal with these individuals over and over again, and we don't have 600 arrests with 75 convictions. Thank you.
That's a perfect segue to Representative Matthews.
Thank you very much, Mr. DA and Sheriff, and my favorite police chief, Mr. Medina, and to everybody here today. There's probably nothing or very little that's more demoralizing to law-abiding citizens than to be walking in a store, shopping, and seeing somebody else walking out with merchandise without paying for it. And as a state representative, I would have people contact me and say, how come this is happening? And why aren't we doing anything about it? And why can't we do anything about it? And it was obvious that we needed to do something about it. And we put together a team with the chambers of commerce, with business people, with law enforcement, and we were able to enact a much tougher and specific law, Organized Retail Crime Act, in order to both get to the sort of low-level folks who earn their living shoplifting small amounts, trying to keep it under the felony level. We fixed that in the statute. We also created a crime called organized retail crime for those who are going in as teams, often with weapons and wiping out stores. That's been happening in California. It was starting to happen here. We wanted to get ahead of that curve. We now have, I think, a statute that gives a lot of tools to law enforcement, and if we need more, then we can see what we need to do to make them stronger if we need to do that, or change them in some way. It is more complicated to prosecute these cases than as a simple misdemeanor, and I want to give the DA a shout out for putting the resources into Metro Court in order to bring these cases and increase the number of convictions. The final thing I'll say, drawing on what Police Chief Medina mentioned, we absolutely need to increase our behavioral health, mental health services in the state. We are lacking, and one of the things that I will certainly be supporting in the next legislative session was how can we improve those facilities for people who are drug addicted, for people who have mental illness, for people who have behavioral health problems. We're way below the line where we should be, and we need to change that, and that will also help deal with our crime problem in the state and the city. So thank you very much to the DA for inviting me, and we're going to keep trying to make a difference.
Thank you very much. Terry?
So good afternoon, everybody. I'm reminded of something a long time ago that former Governor Kerry Carruthers used to tell me. He would say time and time again, when we are doing something right, say hallelujah. So, hallelujah, DA Bregman. This is something right. We are so appreciative of you're doing two things. One, shining a bright, serious spotlight on the challenge and difficulty of shoplifting in this community. And secondly, for bringing all of us together, because this is the kind of issue that needs all of us every day at the same time doing the same thing to get shoplifting off our streets. You know, crime is simply, it just impedes economic growth. The business community has been hit hard by retail crime over and over and over again. So this is another thing, as Chief Medina referred to the toolbox. This is another thing in our toolbox. So DA Bregman, thank you so much. We stand with you and stand with everybody else here to get rid of the horrible shoplifting problem in our city and state. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Rob Black. I'm the president and CEO of the New Mexico Chamber of Commerce. And I do want to start with thanking DA Bregman and his leadership on this issue. When we were talking about this going into session, he was a stalwart throughout the session in helping support getting HB 234 passed. But there's more that we all need to do as a community, right? So part of that is the role of the business community. And we have, as a business community, stood up and are partnering with law enforcement. We created last September the New Mexico Organized Retail Crime Association. As part of that program, we meet monthly with our retailers and with law enforcement to case manage program or incidents around the state. And one of the great things about this, what we've also done, is created an online digital platform and it was a year ago this September that we launched this platform. And now we've got hundreds of businesses participating, and it's free of charge to any retailer in the state to participate. They can upload their video, upload security footage, and now it's easily accessible for law enforcement for prosecution. So we are, from the business community, we are stepping up to partner deeply with our law enforcement agencies, and we're so honored to be here seeing the progress that our leaders are making, whether it's Representative Matthews, the district attorney, the sheriff. So we're extremely grateful and look forward to continuing this effort together. Thank you.
Yes, please. Hello, everyone. My name is Trey Gilpin. I'm the lead attorney for Alto US, and we help businesses with their crime problems. Among my clients are some of the biggest retailers in this nation in New Mexico: Big Lots, Walgreens, REI, and Target. I just want to say, we talk about shoplifting. A lot of people think, oh, you know, these are just drops in the bucket for enormous businesses. But I'll tell you, all those misdemeanors, all those drops in the bucket, they add up. And they have a significant impact on the bottom line of businesses and also on employees going to work every day. I think Representative Matthews spoke about nothing is more demoralizing when you're going into work for a paycheck and then you see somebody else stealing the same merchandise that you're working to afford. And I'm very thankful to DA Bregman and Chief Medina and APD and the APD Organized Crime Unit. This is an unprecedented effort that I've seen in retail crime, not only in this state, but also across the country. Thank you.
Are there any questions from the media or from anybody? Yes.
662 cases last year. Where does the resources come to put? How are we not robbing Peter to pay Paul to take on this big effort here?
I appreciate that question. So first of all, let me say that since when I first took this job about 8 months ago, we've hired 40 new lawyers in this office. In fact, I think we're in a hiring freeze now because the people at the admin side said you have no more money to hire lawyers right now. But not only do we have new attorneys, but we also have 14 designated lawyers that already prosecute DWIs and domestic violence in Metropolitan Court assigned to the various courtrooms. This will be added to their caseload. And that's why I personally thanked each and every one of them, because this is an important thing that's important to the community. We wouldn't do it if we didn't think we were capable of doing it. We wouldn't do it if we thought it would take away from the prosecution of anything else. It will not do that. But we are going to add to the caseload of Metropolitan Court attorneys, and they have absolutely agreed to step up, and so yeah, we're all looking at the legislature for help, and obviously I got a budget that I got to worry about, but for right now I know that we can do this and we can do it well, and I can remember 30 years ago when I was an assistant district attorney and we with Metropolitan Court attorneys prosecuted shoplifting. So we're gonna get back to that, and we're gonna make a difference.
You said 15% is an unacceptable conviction rate. What is an acceptable conviction rate for misdemeanor shoplifting?
I don't know. I would like to obviously convict everybody of shoplifting that commits the crime, and obviously if they've done it and we can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, that should be our goal. At the same time, I also recognize the fact that there are a good portion of these that will need to be diverted. That they may be a first-time shoplifter. They may got so deep into an addiction that their brain just told them they need to go get some money or somehow get something so that they get some money so they can continue to feed their addiction. I realize that. But after they get that opportunity, and they're a repeat customer in any way, whether or not it's just another misdemeanor or whether or not it's something we aggravate to a felony, we will prosecute them and hold them accountable. At the end of the day, I don't know what the result will be, but I know it's going to be better than 15%. This is going to be starting now, so every new case filed as of Friday, September 1, we will be entering our appearance.
You don't have a goal for a percentage of where you like.
My goal, by the way, it's not always justice when it's the conviction rate, but when it's such a dismal rate, like 15%, I can tell you something is clearly not working, and this isn't working, this process. But our goal is obviously we wouldn't bring a case if we didn't believe they were guilty of the crime. That's a mantra in this office. We're going to make sure we can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. So I don't know what the number is yet. Let's see how things go. And I'm not going to make any kind of promise out here that is not realistic or under-realistic. Yes?
Hey, this is for all three, Commissioner Allen and you.
For me?
All
For
three.
for these two guys too?
All y'all, whoever want to answer.
Yes.
Hey, just a quick question. And correct me if I'm wrong, Chief Medina, I know you guys sent the letter, because Walgreens, they get hit up all the time. There's always constant theft in that store, and I remember the recent one of the 3 suspects that ran up there, stole alcohol and what have you, and when we got in contact with Walgreens, the manager at the time was telling us that they are in fear, right? And then there was a letter, a recommendation, like, for them to hire level 3 security guard or what have you, which is fine. But then when we got in contact with IPS, which is a private security company, I mean, you see them everywhere, Target, all over the city, what have you, they said that Walgreens did reach out, but they couldn't afford it. They couldn't afford security, right? So in this case, anyone can answer this. What would you guys recommend at that point? Because it's a constant fear for the employees based on what the manager.
Of course, and I will say when it comes to the fear of any employees, no employees should ever do anything that escalates this in a shoplifting case that could possibly turn into a violent encounter. That's something that we would never suggest should happen. We are going to continue to work on capturing these shoplifters and law enforcement, and this office is going to be prosecuting them now. So I think we're gonna do it the old-fashioned way. You commit a crime, you get caught for it, we're gonna prosecute you for it, and there's gonna be consequences. I'm not gonna get in the middle of Walgreens business decisions or whatever. That's something perhaps somebody else. But I don't want this to digress into a discussion necessarily about Walgreens but every business out there is feeling the problems of shoplifting. I mean, everybody. I don't care if you're a mega big company like a Walmart or you're a mom and pop store just on a corner in the middle of Albuquerque that's just trying to get along and do business. And so it's unacceptable at every level. And we in law enforcement know we have a huge challenge out there, but we're going to take it on head on. And so I'm not going to make a suggestion on what businesses should do for their security. That's not my role. My role is to prosecute crime, and that's what I'm going to stay on.
Right, no, I understand, but it was already suggested, right? And so in my case, in the entire situation, right, if this is an ongoing issue for Walgreens in particular, and it was suggested to them that, hey, level, which is fine because I know you guys say it's not the officer's job to prosecute. I totally understand that. They have stuff to take care of. If Medina, if you want to answer that. But just saying like, okay, cool, we went and asked them like, hey, can you guys, take care of your security issues?
I think the most important thing to recognize is that we sent a letter with a list of recommendations. And one of those recommendations was a level 3 security guard. But there were other recommendations that were part of that you actually heard people talk about today. And you heard an attorney who stood up here and said, every single misdemeanor counts. And one of our big heartache was that crime was not being reported. And I think it's more important now than ever that we really take a close look at the details in that letter. And that letter talked about every single crime being reported. Why? You just heard the DA talk about there are now 23 cases that have been turned into felonies because they combined several cases. We want every case reported because we know that when we also gave them a link to upload video, that we could start putting these cases together and build strong felony cases where 4 out of 5 cases that they set up for detention was granted. So our whole goal is to not only give advice on how you can secure and make your employees feel better, but also the advice on how you could help us identify repeat shoplifters, build strong cases to turn them into felonies, and preserve evidence, video evidence, upload it to the police department, which would enable us to easily prosecute these cases better. So the list of recommendations doesn't state that you have to follow all of the recommendations. It basically states this is a list of recommendations, and we're hoping that they could take some of those recommendations into consideration. And quite frankly, I'd be extremely happy if we focused on making sure that every business in Albuquerque recognizes there's a new state law. Every business in Albuquerque upload video to the police department, report these shopliftings, and help the DA's office, help the police department ensure that we're able to move cases into the felony status when we're able to, because we have a complete view of what these offenders are doing.
And so I want to echo one aspect of when it comes to the business community, and that is we want the business community not to do anything to put themselves in any kind of violent situation or escalate anything to any extent. However, we do want them to be vigilant in reporting. Every business needs to report, and if they have videos, save it and do all the things that they know. Because the only way we're going to be successful in court on prosecuted shoplifters is having all the evidence we need. We need to know how much they were trying to steal. We need to know if there's video documentation of this. We want that video, and we want as much as we can possibly get. So, any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, we read a lot of the criminal complaints, and it varies from 200 to 1,000. Also, there's some vandalism involved with broken windows and things like that. What is your office going to do once there's a prosecution for restitution?
For restitution, I mean, that's obviously always we have the ability to ask for restitution from the court, and we will do that when appropriate and when necessary. Obviously, if there's more than just shoplifting going on and there's vandalism, if there's criminal destruction of property, we will charge people accordingly to the acts that they commit, and we will continue to do so. Yes.
The 4 out of 5 successful pretrial detention motions, do you see that as a sea change at all? Because for a long time, shoplifting was considered nonviolent. We've sort of shed a light on these repeat shoplifters, and we're seeing some judges say, this could be dangerous for our community. On the flip side, of the 23 felony aggregate cases you showed, a lot of those are still just warrants, and those guys haven't been arrested and started to move through the system yet. How should we feel about the 4 out of 5 pretrial detention motions, and also that we're charging these cases but haven't necessarily arrested them yet?
So on the 4 to 5 pretrial detention motions, I think a tremendous amount and credit goes to the prosecutors involved in presenting those motions to the court. I think our prosecutors are really focused on providing all the information and evidence they can to courts, to judges, to show why this office believes that particular defendant is a danger to the community's safety. And I think that is having an overall effect. I think if you look at pretrial detention motions since I've been in this office, they are up, and they're going to hopefully continue to go up. Because we don't file pretrial detention motions on everybody. We file them on people that are dangerous we believe, are dangerous to this community. Now, as far as the other ones, we charge people oftentimes with crimes, and we don't always have them in custody. And I know, and I'm also very grateful to the legislature for giving the kind of money they have this last legislative session for warrant roundups. This is the exact reason why, because we have people out there who we know have committed crimes, we believe have committed crimes, and they do not have any respect for the rule of law or law enforcement. And those people, we are going to continue as law enforcement community to go out and hunt them down, bring them to justice, and hold them accountable. So there are going to be oftentimes when we don't always have people in custody that we charge, but we know who did it, we have the evidence to do it, and we're going to go after them. So that's you can run, but at some point you can't hide. Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. And just to follow up with the 23 cases that you guys have taken
Yes.
care of, does this also include the 3 shoplifters in regards to the Walgreens and Albertsons? Because I know when we reported it, they were included in a group of 10, and the fear was that it would lead to other related crimes. And I believe that was Peralta, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't want to misspeak, but I will circle around and get you that information on the specifics. I want to make sure we're right with what I say, and I'm not positive on that, but I will get to you that information. Any other questions from anybody? Yes.
I know you've talked about this a little bit, but do you think 14 attorneys are enough to kind of cover as many shoplifting cases that we see?
Listen, I would love to have a lot more attorneys in this building, a lot more. And I think the demand out there is there when it comes to the criminal justice system in Bernalillo County, that we could certainly, and I'll be continuing to ask the legislature to increase our budget here at this office. But yeah, I do believe that we can handle it. There are 13 courtrooms, Josh? 14 courtrooms in Metropolitan Court that handle these kind of cases. We have 14 prosecutors, one in each courtroom. We will do the absolute best we can with the resources we have, and I do not believe in any way that this is going to hurt the prosecution of other cases. I would love to have more. In fact, I think we should have more funding, since the legislature's here, more funding to be able to specifically identify a shoplifting prosecutor or 2 or 3. And this isn't just our prosecutors; it's support staff. There's all this discovery that comes in for every case that we have to distribute and get out to defense counsel, and we have to conduct, allow for pretrial interviews, things like that. Those are all important things that takes a lot of manpower and women power, if you will, in our office. And I'm all for increasing our abilities, but right now we can handle it. Anything else? Yes.
I got one for Representative Matthews. A lot of these cases are guys that are arrested and then they get back out of jail, and we've heard a few people say addiction is at the center of the problem here. We've heard we can't arrest or throw everybody in jail to get ourselves out of this problem. I'm wondering, as a lawmaker, where is your eye on in the upcoming session as far as where the resources need to be? Do we need to be putting more people in jail? Do we need to be investing more in addiction and mental health resources? Where's your eye going into the next session here?
Both. And the reason I say both is that quick apprehension is a deterrent to crime and sends a message that this is not the way to get your drug money. This is not the way to behave and act. And then the second part of it, though, is we have to deal with the reality of addiction and, in some cases, mental illness. And so, as I said earlier, I certainly support expanding, growing our resources in this area. I don't know if you remember, but back in the prior administration, our behavioral health system was devastated when the governor shut down all kinds of mental health facilities, and what happened were those behavioral health people, those mental health specialists, left the state because they couldn't get jobs. And we are still rebuilding. I was on the health committee for 3 years, in my first 3 years in the legislature, and behavioral health was a constant concern. We can't hire them fast enough. We can't grow them fast enough. We're still trying to rebuild from what happened back in the prior administration. And to me, it's a huge priority because as a legislator, I don't want to be sending people to jail or to prison. I don't want shoplifting to be happening. What I want are people to be living good quality lives. But if we don't have the resources to help them, then we don't get that as the result that we want in enough cases.
Okay, thank you all very much. Appreciate y'all coming. If there's any follow-up questions that you have, you all know Nancy's, and I'll point to her and say, talk to Nancy. Thank you all very much for coming.